Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TFTuesday Podcast. My name is Zill. It's good to have you all back here again today. Once again, I'm going to complain about the fucking weather because I don't know how to fucking dress at any given day, and I would like Toronto to fucking stop. I'm joined by my illustrious co-host, k-libra. How you doing, k-libra?
The weather's not bothering me that much. It's Canada.
Well, that's great for you, but I can't fucking sleep at night.
I know, that fucking sucks. Wait, but don't you have, good climate control in your house?
Well, yeah, but the problem is when you live in a condo building, they have the heating on for some of the months and air conditioning for the others. So if you're like me, who likes to live in 60-degree weather, you're kind of out of luck when the heating is just blasting at all times. And sure, you can turn it off, which I have, but your base temperature is going to be probably 68 or 70, and that's already almost 10 degrees too warm for me.
Yeah, I'm auto-completing that into metric.
Oh,
so
yes.
You live in an oven.
That would be really funny, actually, if it was 60 degrees Celsius, I think.
Okay, fine.
God.
Yeah, you live in pretty uncomfortable conditions for most people.
Yeah.
But
no, what I'm saying is 16 or 15 degrees Celsius is the ideal for me.
And you don't have to worry about temperature when you're a patron because there's no need to worry about air conditioning or heating. You just, you contribute what you want, and the Raisin Room is always an ideal temperature. Mysteriously, nobody knows how it happens.
Well, isn't it because you've put in the climate control for that room?
I don't know. I can't tell you anything about the Raisin Room.
Yes, you can.
I could, but
You're
I'm
being
not going
coy.
to.
You're being coy, but you could.
No, I'm being frog, bitch.
You're being frog.
Yes.
Okay.
Long pause in there on purpose. Yes. Do subscribe, check out the Patreon, all that kind of stuff. That way you can hook up and talk with people about a bunch of, ideas and everything. You get a bunch of different perspectives, and also you get to talk to Zill, and you get to complain about anything I have to say,
I love how you disclaim it as you can talk to Zill and you can complain about me.
What? That's what happens.
I'll talk to you too. Oh my god. I think that was your hammiest transition. I'm gonna give that one the hammiest stamp award.
Oh, you can eat hearty tonight.
Yes, we will eat hearty tonight. Anyways, we have a very special guest with us today.
Hello.
Yeah, why don't you introduce yourself?
I am Proxer. I am joining this podcast. First time on. I am a TF artist. I've done a bunch of sequences. I'm gotten into comics and working on sequential media. You may have seen some of my stuff if you've followed the Dancer's Reflection comics, which is kind of hiatus, but it's my ongoing project. And generally a TF enthusiast.
Yeah. And you've been doing art for a good while, which is pretty fantastic. I remember finding your stuff on Transfer back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
And, it was always nice to see updates from you. I was curious as to, how you kind of, found your way into, the TF community online.
Oh, as an artist, that came from not learning how to draw. So I only learned to draw TF because I couldn't draw anything else.
Oh.
So it's easier to say, this person is turning into this if it's a midpoint,
right,
if you don't know how to draw the before or the end.
Right.
So that was kind of my leg up as far as, keeping myself self-motivated by eventually learning to draw the before and the after and the in-between.
No, that's really cool. It's funny you say that because I'm familiar with at least the early stuff that you shared online, and I wouldn't have pegged it as I didn't really feel confident in the beginning or end stages. So that's interesting. Did you find that by doing it in those kind of mid stages early on, did that help set you up to do the later bits once you'd had a chance to refine some of the mid stuff?
Yeah, for even drawing humans, I would say that I've only been trying to draw them as a necessity in the past 4 years.
Really?
Yeah, because everything else has been most when people are commissioning stuff, it's gonna be usually anthro, and sometimes it's anthro to other thing,
right?
Which I think mostly defeats the purpose. But
I
to each
agree.
their own.
Yeah,
it's just visually less interesting to me.
Yeah, humans are an excellent blank canvas to put whatever you want on.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine that part of the necessity to get more in tune with some of the human features was to kind of to kind of oh my god,
getting that evil out.
Get that evil. Yes,
that's great. I love it.
some of the necessity was for some of your more longer running projects. Sorry.
I thought
That is one of my favorite things ever.
I thought this was a professional show.
It is, I swear.
Look,
Listen,
yeah, all
sometimes
of you-
the frog just comes out. Okay?
All of you are in my house, and things will happen to people that are new here.
Like you drank a Coke like right before this.
I did. I mean, I drink Diet Coke regularly, so it's just like a normal thing
I
for me.
swapped your Diet Coke with Diet Croak.
Okay. Understandable. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
Anyways.
We're leaving that in. you know?
Yes, I know you're leaving that in because you're editing this later. So I imagine some of the necessity also came from working that into some of your longer form projects and kind of fleshing out some of the worlds around that. Would that be an accurate kind of like estimate?
Oh yeah, for the actual like, again going back to dancers, yeah, when I'm trying to draw characters turning to and from human, I want to make the distinction not quite as clear between this person can draw awesome ferals dancing and doing human stuff, but humans can't do anything because they look all stiff and weird, and I can't draw them standing normally.
Well, neither can I.
It's hard to draw characters standing casually.
Yeah.
Like you can do dynamic stuff all the time, but like if you can't draw someone standing normal, that's harder than it looks.
No, go ahead.
Well, that's because if you have somebody standing normally, doing pretty much nothing, a lot of it revolves around symmetry
And subtlety.
Yeah, and doing symmetry is really fucking hard.
Yeah.
For a natural standing pose and stuff, you kind of don't want symmetry because you want to like have a bit of a tilt in the hip or counter posture with the spine.
That's right, but also we're talking about say like a character sheet where things are supposed to be generally static, so it's just like this is the resting position.
Oh yeah. Well, I was thinking more in the context of the comic itself too, though, because I can definitely tell like you've aimed to have the human characters at least be in like conveying some kind of like emotion, even if they're like at a standstill, or they might be doing something more dynamic, like being in the middle,
or they're just walking.
Yeah, or they're just that's dynamic, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's dynamic, but it's not like action posed at a supreme angle.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
What?
You're looking at me. What?
Nothing. I'm looking at both of you.
Okay. Well, I guess I was curious to like dive a little bit into Dancer's Reflection because I just reread it again today, and so I was curious to get a better understanding as to like what kind of like inspired it for you, and how that kind of then conveyed some of the characters onto the page. And I say it in that way because one of the things that really does stand out to me about the comic itself is that it starts off with characters in various kinds of situations and then takes a number of them in unexpected directions, which I really liked. And it really felt like the characters themselves were already fully formed when you started writing it. So I guess my question is kind of like, where did the idea come from, and then how did those kind of characters flow from it?
It kind of came across much like how you said, except for the formed part, because originally it was supposed to just be a simple one-off comic, maybe like 10 pages at best, of just, here's a dude, his friend brought him out to a club to maybe hit it up with this griffin dancer, the pole dancer, and then the griffin dancer basically swaps places with him, and she steals his humanity, he becomes a griffin dancer, and then that's the story.
Right.
But as I was drawing it, I started to actually like the griffin dancer a lot more, and I was like, well, she can't be evil. It's because look how nice she is. They're having a wonderful bonding moment, like on the couch, sipping scotch and like cuddling with the big griffins. Like, that can't be evil. I can't. And so like at this point, like the last couple pages were written, so like throw that all out because she's not evil anymore. Now I'm flying by the seat of my pants. Like, what? Okay, who else do I have to work with here? Here's this lady who was walking in with the protagonist's friend. And okay, she's actually the bad guy.
Yeah.
She was the proprietor of the whole thing, and she lured them all in there, and like I'm suddenly left over with all of these free radical parts, which I'm like in chapter 2 kind of still piecing together into something cohesive.
Right.
And shoutouts to Ghost 606 for helping me with that. He's been invaluable when it comes to deciphering my own story and helped me find pieces of continuity between chapter 1 and chapter 2.
Right.
Which is kind of on hiatus. I've been working on some other art stuff as I go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so once it kind of swapped over to her being the villain, then it opened up a lot of ground to like her as a character. She wasn't just a one-off antagonist, and kind of started to like fractal out into other character potential moments. Like I must have blocked out the story beats for this thing like 7 or 8 different ways at this point. Between her trying to like seek forgiveness for kind of luring the protagonist in, who doesn't actually have a name. He's never had a name. He never will have a name.
I was gonna say, like, his name is not mentioned once, and then when he gets his new name, that's when they start referring to him with it. But I noticed almost right away that he was never directly named.
Which is kind of how I end up with most of my characters. This is a bit of an incidental evolution, I suppose, since most characters aren't, like in most TF things I do, aren't going to be referred to by name, so it kind of leaves room for a self-insertion thing.
Yeah.
Both for myself and for readers. But for this specifically, it ended up working really well in its favor, because after one is transformed and given a new name and identity, then it's like, well, who was I before? I don't know.
And
no one knows.
Yeah.
You don't, as the reader, don't know.
It was really interesting too, because one of the things I really liked was how Violet, who's kind of introduced very early on and then kind of disappears for a long stretch, it was interesting to see how she kind of tied back into the story as well. And in particular, there was a little detail I noticed when I was rereading, where there's a picture on the table before of their 2 human selves, and I was like, I wonder who those 2 people are. And then, well, I mean, you know.
Yeah, and that's something else that I've been trying to flesh out with Ghost, is the relationship of Claire, the antagonist dragon, Violet, and Ginny, and like how their life was before, why they were members of the club in the first place,
right?
And why they wanted to leave. And this is kind of spoilers, maybe-ish, but I'm way away from actually getting to that point in the story, but ended up kind of working with the idea of that they were part of the staff before Claire kind of turned mega maniacal.
Ah, okay, gotcha.
So that it wasn't until Claire starts to actually become possessive of the actual dancers and feeling like she owns them,
right,
that they wanted to get out, and that's why they had to take a bad deal,
right,
to then transform protagonist.
And they did take a very bad deal.
Yeah, and that's just something I want to get into with like the B chapter, the B side of their story, of trying to find a way to reconcile with the bad thing they've done and to not put someone into a worse situation than they're trying to escape from.
Yeah. And it's rough too, because I mean, I almost thought maybe when they talked about how, like, oh, you know, to let 2 go, you're going to need to bring 4 in. One of the things I thought maybe was like, oh, well, they'll clearly go for Greg, who was the friend who lured our unnamed protagonist there, unknowingly, to be clear, to some degree. But he ended up just getting turned by Claire anyway, so I was like, oh, well, they have to find 3 whole-ass new people.
Yeah, and there's definitely, like, I feel like I'm going to be spoiling a lot of stuff, but again, it's way down the line, so it's probably going to be forgotten by then, where Greg and Molly do end up meeting, Molly, the main character who the protag turns into, do end up meeting later and maybe kind of recognizing the bro vibe.
Oh, interesting.
Even through the kind of pre-programmed meekness of their new kobold form. That part still needs some working out as far as where they fit in.
Yeah, it's also a work in progress, which is understandable.
Oh yeah, and most of the beats are still laid out. I think when it comes to like the final climax-ish, that's what's still a bit loose.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm curious to ask too then, because there are a few like different themes that I think I noticed kind of as I was kind of doing my reread, and one of the things actually that I wanted to touch on was this theming around identity, because both Molly post change as well as Greg post change both seem to have kind of lost a number of the facets of who they used to be. They don't necessarily remember who they were, et cetera, et cetera. But it's clear that wasn't always the case, given how Violet and Ginny clearly knew what they were before.
Yeah.
And I imagine that plays into Claire's kind of turn, so to speak. But the question I kind of want to ask is, how did you kind of conceptualize that sort of identity changing into the theming of the story? Because it feels like it's a pretty important part of it.
Oh, yeah. And that's something that was trying to be conceptualized with how Ginny got there in the first place, where she was maybe coming out of a bad situation on her own, and then finding refuge, working as a new transformed dancer, living her best life under Claire, which she got to keep basically who she is.
Right.
But when it comes to protag turned Molly, this is after Claire starts to turn more megamaniacal and controlling of her dancers. So they don't have a past, effectively. So where are they going to go? She owns them now.
Right.
And so that's something that Ginny's trying to fight against, to not give her more things to own, effectively. And so when she's trying to get back in to see Molly and kind of help, or somewhat painfully question where she came from, like asking her, like, she has memories, but they're kind of retwisted.
Right, yeah, they seem warped almost.
Yeah, like, were your parents griffins, or hippogrificorns, rather? Can you drive? Do you have a driver's license? Where do you keep it?
Yeah.
And it's like, of course I do. I keep it in... I was like, yeah, I know how to drive, but how would you even fit in a car? It's like, and then she's maybe starts to have a bit of a resplit between old and new personality.
Right. I'm curious then, like, when it comes to that sort of like focus on personality, did you kind of set out from the beginning wanting to delve into like personality shifts and such, or was that something that just came into the story more organically as you kind of started to reform it around, like when Ginny became her own character and the villain changed?
Yeah, I think that kind of came about as I was working on the process and, flying by the seat of my pants during the initial transformation thing, where she was kind of gaining the overriding personality of performing as everything.
Yeah.
Where the eyes of the crowd is all that matters. And so that kind of carried over into the second chapter as well, where she's been kind of imbued with all of these things that weren't her before, such as like the unnatural timing and coordination,
right,
and maybe a meekness and desire to please, which also leads into her constantly seeking Claire's approval.
Right.
And that also kind of developed as like a dependency that she has of seeing nothing wrong in the person who effectively kidnapped her.
Yeah.
And also kicks her around, because when there was the part where she'd been changed and she was dancing, then she falls over and she just gets kicked, and it's just like, again.
Yeah.
No, that was actually there was no physical contact in that part. That was like the half training montage at the end of the first
wait, that's
one.
right. She doesn't get kicked over.
No, you think about when she was transformed, she was like in this post-TF like daze, and there's like, oh, this one's kind of useless. Look how she can't even stand up, and kind of like nudging her hand.
Yeah.
When she was trying to guilt trip Ginny and Violet.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she's just really fucking cruel. But the way now that you're spelling it out, I'm seeing that now the club is the lair and the dancers are her horde, and
that's
exactly.
what she
does. Yeah.
Where it's we're also playing with the concept of like maybe she has a giant mountain of crumpled up $1 bills or something. But yeah, she instead collects like creature essences, human essences, as well as the dancers themselves.
Right.
As her hoard, her possessions.
Yeah. It's a really interesting take on like dragons with hordes and like their views on perception and how those can kind of permeate outside of just hoarding objects, but also people and essences, like you said. And I guess one of the things that also kind of struck me in kind of all of that is obviously there's very much kind of focus, at least, on the aspect of performance, right? With, the dancers and all of that stuff. It's very much an important part of the comic itself. Mm-hmm. And so I was curious as to what kind of inspired you to make that the setting for the story and then kind of build characters outside of it too.
Originally that really just stemmed from the simple idea of I want to draw hot characters on poles.
Okay.
But then again, quickly when I started to actually draw it, it's like, oh wait, it's actually really fun to draw these like non-human characters doing things like pushing the potentials or pushing the extremes of the poses that their bodies can do.
Right.
Like the quadrupedal bodies of original Ginny design, doing pole stuff, and then later when it came to Molly as well, I just really like pushing those kind of poses. So
yeah.
It kind of turned into like a learned passion of the setting, and as well as other characters such as like how would a naga work on a pole too?
Yeah.
Like there's all kinds of possibilities there. But it's taking a simple setting with lots of complex potential, especially for like visual posing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it has big like almost aptophilia vibes in the sense of like
What's that?
So it's like the idea that like once you've like kind of like been changed into a form, you kind of have to get both familiar with the benefits as well as the drawbacks, and so understanding like how do I like coordinate my limbs and around this activity, and like how does that like affect how I perceive myself, those kinds of things.
Yeah, like something I always have fun with Molly specifically is her hands, where she has very long hands, but the palms are really long. Her thumb is closer to the wrist and kind of stubby.
Yeah, almost like a dew claw.
Yeah, and her fingers themselves are 3 fingers rather long. So like having her like doing her makeup with like pinched between 2 little fingers, or stuff like that. Just I don't know. That's particularly fun for me.
Yeah. No, I think that was one of the earlier pages in chapter 2. I noticed her doing the eye makeup. Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, she was like looking at the mirror and feeling like she doesn't really feel comfortable or like know herself like that, like having doubts of her own appearance, even despite how much she tries to primp and train herself.
Right.
Something isn't right.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, but that doesn't matter now. I have a show to put on.
Yeah.
It's her curtain call. Time to get on stage.
Yeah. I might be a little bit off base with this question, but I figure I'll ask it anyways. Obviously, performance is, as I said before, like a very important part. And in particular, there's obviously a lot of theming around gender, especially given there's like a number of gender changes throughout. And one of the things that I have thought about, and I've talked about it on the podcast before too, about how, like very much gender is also a performance. And so I was wondering if that played at all into some of the like conceptualization around like the gender changes and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, again, chapter 1 started a while ago, like before I was considering gender possibilities and stuff for myself. But then later on, it kind of start to like use Molly more as somewhat of a placeholder for myself in some ways. It comes up, I guess, more later when she's dealing more with the split personality thing of the conflict between old personality and implanted personality.
Right.
And maybe the different situations where one will kind of spring up over the other. But there's definitely the intent to have the more harmonious resolve into the new whole of...
Right.
Still has the feminine aspects of the implanted form, but those are the parts she wanted to keep, and not the ones that overwrite maybe her other baseline stuff.
Yeah. almost like taking stock of the different personas and then reconciling them in a way that at the end of the day she'll be happy with.
A bit of a joke, and further on, how I mentioned before how the characters are basically like under the bad deal for Claire of 1 out and have to get two in exchange for their own freedom.
Yeah.
The first guy that they meet in the first couple pages, where the cameo of Proxer Griffin is showing their ass too. He's gonna get some more play, where he's kind of the sleazeball that Claire marks for them.
Yes.
Of like, bring this guy in, I'll make this one easy for you, stop wasting my time. And so I was like racking with Ghost for a while of like, how are we gonna do this? Like, we've set up so strong that we don't want the main characters to re-engage in this evil, but it's become a point where it's almost plot integral.
Yeah.
Because it has to happen in a way that distracts Claire and brings her away from a different event that's happening.
Well,
Okay.
that's the moral gray area thing. I can see that going in a way where it's part of a plan to like do whatever, and they got to reconcile with that too, because
yeah, and that's exactly what we're struggling with. But then I kind of thought of like, but what if he's into it?
I mean, that solves a lot of the problems, actually.
Yeah, like,
oh, that would be funny. Like, oh, hey, I heard rumors. It's just like, so I don't know what this is, but I want.
I want a piece of it.
How does it go in The Simpsons? Like, I've seen some evil stuff, weird, twisted, eerie, evil, godless stuff,
and I want in.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it planning on like building it up. Like, they're all super hesitant. Like, they don't want to ruin someone else's life, but it's the only way they can get to he's actually a super big hoof fetish. He loves hoofs. That's why he was into Proxer Griff at the start. That's why he's gonna end up becoming this like tall giraffe, big titty girl.
Oh, I mean, that sounds amazing. Sign me up.
That's very funny because I fucking was thinking of Yahtzee's review on Bayonetta, the first one, and he described her as a pole dancing giraffe because she's all long.
No, he's not wrong.
Yeah, so like he gets to end up as some kind of self fetishy form. And probably with tits that'll hurt his back later.
Yeah, I mean, probably. Yeah.
Don't worry, the giraffe back will hold that up just fine.
But also as a way to kind of thumb their nose at Claire, because she's all about flexing control over people and keeping the pleasure for herself, effectively. And so when she essentially forces the two, Ginny and Violet, to transform someone against their will, as she had hoped so. She was hoping to flex her control over those two. But when it turns from non-con to super-con, then it's like, well, just frustrates Claire to no end. Like, I'm not getting anything out of this.
Yeah, and that's the funny part, because it's like, in a way, she could almost immediately satisfy her need to like collect more people if she was deliberately going out trying to collect people that wanted it, but that goes against what she also wants, which is like the control element. It's a very interesting interplay.
I wouldn't have assumed that she was a sadist just as she wants. Like I would have thought.
At least in my reading, it seemed like she was also getting off to the control too.
I think it came off to me like you can't go against me, but it's. I just think of Dr. Doom. He can make you submit, and that can be satisfying. But if you're just like, you're going to give your life to him, and he's just like, okay, just don't fuck this up.
Oh, no. There's absolutely a sexual element to her control, where the next couple pages that I've thumbnailed, she's effectively telling Ginny and Violet, like, kind of recapping the story a little bit. Like, here's the deal, here's the new target for you, don't fuck this up, here's the small time frame. Also, I'm getting myself eaten out by a kobold as we're having this conversation.
I was gonna say, I felt like the thing that really solidified the idea of like she was really into control was the way in which she transformed Greg, and also like was like treating him throughout, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Greg as 14, the new kobold, is going to be kind of sprinkled around here and there in the background, kind of like, even though there's many identical kobolds, this one seems familiar to Molly, and she doesn't really know why.
Yeah, I like that. The idea that there is still something like kind of almost intangible or recognizable even after all of that.
Yeah, the bro sense.
Yeah, the bro sense. The broski sense. Oh my god. Well, I mean, it's funny because I was going to ask a little bit about like what the future plans are, but I feel like we've already gotten so much into them. At least in terms, and I'm not asking you to spoil anything, but at least in terms of where you're headed for the end of the comic eventually, do you feel like the path that you'll take to get there will be satisfying for yourself, or do you feel like a sense of obligation towards delivering some sort of audience expectation?
I think it's actually hit kind of a nice middle ground.
Okay.
Where there's a lot of happy accidents that happen so far in like its development process. Where since Molly is part hippogriff, part unicorn, basically like having all of the unicorn parts from Claire, having all of the griffin parts from Ginny.
Yeah.
Whenever I say we, I mean me and Ghost.
Yeah.
Since again he's been invaluable with helping me like bounce ideas off of. Since unicorns are a symbol of purity, and hippogriffs are a symbol of forgiveness and love, and like, that can definitely play into how the ending works out between Ginny and Molly.
Interesting. I really like that. Has it also been like super engaging to work with someone else on the project? Like I don't know fully the extent of Ghost's involvement, but it sounds like it's been pretty integral in sort of like moving things along now.
Yeah. Yeah, he's been very helpful in helping keep me inspired with my own idea, really. Because he's always trying to like pick through and find, again, the parts to work on, elements that were maybe a coincidental, like small detail in the first one, which then can be built off of later again.
Right.
But also just having someone who's as interested in the idea helps me maintain my own interest as well.
Right.
And but even in that regard, like I've kind of fallen in love with Molly, where like she's just fun conceptually. Yeah. Even like her design by default has like 8 boobs or like of varying sizes.
Yes.
But like I've kind of ended up drawing not like I've kind of omitted the boobs for most of the drawings I do of her.
Yeah.
Because I kind of just like her svelte.
That's really nice. I feel like as a creator, and I'm almost like making an analogy, I guess, to like how I do a lot of like my D&D stuff with my table. Like it is really invigorating to have the kind of feedback of energy that mirrors the feedback and energy that you're putting into your project. Because it's not only just validating, but it also, like you said, is invigorating because you feel like you can have other people who are giving back the sort of feedback that you're hoping to inspire, and that just kind of furthers your energy and desire to do more for the project and get more invested in the characters too. Because I mean, of course, like at the end of the day, this is also a story, and you know, to continue to build a story that you're happy with, you also have to feel some level of at least connection or understanding of the characters themselves. So the fact that you've gotten that buy-in is a really good sign.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to loving the characters but knowing you're going to have to hurt them.
Yeah.
And like this is what their arc entails, but you love your babies so.
Oh, absolutely.
And you want to protect your babies.
But also the little meow meow has to have some trauma, you know? Like that's just
having your whole worldview shattered and realizing that the person you thought you hated isn't really the person you hated.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's definitely a point when Molly blames Ginny for stealing her humanity.
Right.
As is one of the persons you remember seeing before Claire kind of took over.
Yeah.
But yeah, having someone to help amplify your own inspiration, especially for like when Pages take so long doing it solo, is invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds like you'll need a team like Miota did.
I would love a team. Seeing other artists get people to help with their coloring and their backgrounds and stuff. I would love to do that, but I also would love to pay those people as well.
Yeah. It's tough.
It's a tricky balance to do, but I would love to get this done before I'm old.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll get there. I'm sure you will. I have faith.
I would love to get some money and hire some magician to help.
Yeah, that would be good.
Unless you're all looking for super exposure.
I'd help.
But also demand payment.
Yeah.
I'd help here and there.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah, and also trying to get past my own self-expectation of one-upping myself every page.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
It's not so sustainable.
No, it's not. And that like, almost weight of, like, personal growth expectations can be so hindering sometimes. I think all three of us here have been in that headspace at least more than once. So.
Well, it's the love of the project that's really going to carry it to the end, not so much whether you're pushing your growth or not. Because
but you do have to surmount that headspace still.
Well, you do, but even you don't even have to do that necessarily. You can also just kind of ignore it. If you can forget about it for just long enough, like in certain little stretches, you can make it.
Yeah, it's just getting out of your own head for that.
Yep. I mean, look at the Scott Pilgrim books.
Oh yeah, those are art stilistics are mega simple.
Yeah, it's not just that it's mega simple, but those things came out like a year apart of each other, and each one is like drastically different. So, but there's nothing really wrong with any of them either.
Oh, of course.
And and even then, it's not necessarily even a pushing of like growth. Like, oh, this one's better than that one. The style kind of changes like in the third and fourth one.
Oh, yeah, it refines.
But then it changes again, and then it's the style that people know Scott Pilgrim to be.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is that even though you have this story going, it's fine to like change it up in different ways that works for you. Because I keep bringing this up, but it's the story of this artist that took this. It took 13 years for this guy to finish this graphic novel project, and he said he would never want to do it again.
Oh.
Yeah.
He said he's very proud of it, and that he did these things very lovingly, and he went to locations to reference things, and drew every little person and every little face, and he's like, fuck it, fuck that forever. I'm never doing that again. There's other shit I want to do.
Oh yeah, I totally feel as well. Like when I was working on the third Bloated Gift comic, and there just ended up being like a 8 reindeer transformation orgy thing.
Oh my god.
And
Oh
like,
my god,
as
that.
I'm working on it, and it's like, this is the hottest thing I've ever worked on. Never again.
Never again.
Never
Yeah.
fucking again. I'm trying to keep track. In hindsight, like when reading, I'm like, fuck yeah, I was on my game that time. But then thinking back to as I was working on it, I was like, trying to keep track of which, because the reindeer were each kind of slightly different from each other, and keeping track of which ones were on which side, or which one was sucking on the titty, and which one was getting it from the big reindeer. It's like, fuck, this is hot, and also, fuck, why did I do this?
Yeah.
It's instant gratification for only one group of people, and it ain't you.
Yeah.
I it's one of my own things that I can still go back to.
No. What I'm
But
saying,
not in the moment.
I can go
guess.
back to that well.
well,
Yeah.
but it took you hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. That's anything but instant to me.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
but I can definitely say with somewhat pride that I'm probably the only person to draw an 8 reindeer orgy before.
Yeah, you're like the only one to draw like a good number of things.
Yeah.
Like the synth stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you want to get into that? Because
Oh,
I know
I
you have a
mean-
lot of thoughts.
Yeah, because you're one of the few people who decides to actually try and use technology and also just include that with themes and everything.
Yeah.
I see that a lot of people might like. I want to do it, and I'm not necessarily intimidated anymore, as I realize I just don't know what to put where and what to make what.
Yeah, it's
know?
hard to do.
So it's not even about getting it perfect or anything like that. I mean, did you have like that period where you were just intimidated and you thought you wanted to do that stuff?
For synths in particular?
Yeah, synths, machines.
Yeah. My relationship with drawing synthetic stuff is off again, on again, where it can sometimes be super meditative to plot out all the different organic analogs to like muscles, or maybe like bundles of muscles or joints, and
Right.
how they'd be portrayed, and also finding references for people who've already done this maybe, and kind of aping off of their stylistic designs. But for part of the reason why I kind of indefinitely hiatused the first Souls and Digital comic was because I was having a hard time redrawing this every panel.
Yeah.
So when it's just a one-off of here is a semi-synthetic creature or augmented human with cool animal face thing or cool animal joints in a semi-realistic synthetic way and just really go into all the line art for the joints and the cross contours and like here's a little screw bolt thing and here's that cool little tricircle thing that Masamune Shinro has on all his stuff. It's like it's a lot of fun for illustrations some of the time. It's a lot of work, but it's hard to do consistently.
Yeah. I look at all like the mecha artists and shit, and it always feels like they're fucking insane.
Oh god, yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea how they manage it with all the details.
Jesus Christ.
Like part of the original plan, back with the first run through, this is back before I really was dabbling into 3D at all.
Yeah.
There was the idea of I'm gonna save so much time if I learn to make 3D models and then import it and then draw and trace over it. And then thought of, okay, what if I model this myself? And then suddenly I'm derailed because I'm working on a project completely differently.
Yeah.
And also figuring out how to render it in a way that actually would save time, in quotation marks, by having the line art render on the 3D model.
Right.
Which I'm only now starting to actually kind of get a handle on. Maybe.
Well, it's not an easy process.
And you're learning a completely different discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I it's just one of the standout things, and I think people can really overlook it if they don't look far enough back in your gallery.
Mm-hmm.
But I get it. It's difficult when you want to make it good, and I mean, yeah, you're really fucking good at what you do. Yeah, lots of people think so already, but you need to be told to your face.
This is true. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that is one of the things that I found remarkable is that you were doing machines and things like that, and you were integrating them with people. And like I remember, for instance, this one-off that I think is one-off, like the suit breaks, and then it's just like emergency procedure is to adapt their bodies to your
yeah.
Yeah.
Which is partially inspired by some of the case suits you were doing as well. I think it was like
What?
It was somewhat. I forget whether I was doing like okay. First off, I was doing a trade for Angerboda way back when, I want to say 2019 or something like that, where there's some science suit thing that detects if there's some climactic event, and then out of desperation to preserve the wearer's life, transform them into some kind of shape that would survive and adapt to the new environment that is maybe super hazardous.
Yeah.
And then I was maybe simultaneously seeing you also do like K-suits and stuff as well. And so I kind of fed off that as well for later when someone else wanted a commission for like a Mosasaur-esque aquatic suit or transformation thing.
That's cool. I had no idea that. Wow.
I want to say it was Melisaris that commissioned it. I'm pretty sure because that's the nose ring.
Yeah, all right. Well, that kind of blows my mind. Cool. I don't know how to handle that.
Yeah, many people have come on and said that you've inspired them to do things, and you still don't know how to respond to it.
Well, I don't because I still instinctively put people like in a hierarchy. So like I see my peers, and I put my peers like above me most of the time.
Oh, and I totally get that too because earlier in the month, I had this weird feeling of clarity one day when I was seeing art from the stuff that like I had been inspired by some Japanese artists back in like 2006 or so. And the names escape me at this one moment. I know that Carabiner, he was one of them, and another similar Japanese artist. But just seeing their work and having this feeling of wonderment that I felt the same way back then as an influential little young and baby, and then realized that, wait, I'm kind of there. people are saying that I inspire them too. Fuck, have I gone full circle now?
Yeah.
Like, I was inspired by them, and now people are saying they're being inspired by me. And it's like, when did this happen?
Yeah.
You never know when it happens. It always fucking blindsides you, which is one of the reasons that it's worth, caring about what you do, because you never know who you're going to push in little ways, and it's just like, oh, but I've always loved your shit. It's just like Berserk.
Yeah.
Of course, Berserk had to get a mention.
Again.
After, if you do anything for long enough, doesn't matter how niche it is, somebody will take notice. And somebody will be inspired to do their own stuff out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes they grow. You could be a kingmaker of your own. You have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
But also, like, back to the synth stuff. I think you also, you explore, like, it's in the Dancer's Reflection too, but I think you were telling me a bit about merging and mixing identities and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think even at FE, you mentioned like, how did you put it? Like the impossible problem or something like that?
Yeah, I think what I was asking before is, or what I was referencing to, is that, so if anyone knows the video game Soma,
I love that game.
it ruined a lot of things for me in a good way. It made me actually realize the problem with some of these things.
Yeah.
Is that when you are converting a mind to synthetic, you are effectively copying it. And if you're copying it, the copy is not you. So you don't get to enjoy the benefits of that shiny new chrome body. You are stuck in body A, be it meat or maybe stock synthetic placeholder body.
Mm-hmm.
So they refer to it as losing the coin toss of which you end up in, which doesn't really make sense because it's always going to be what it is. It's all on perception.
Yeah.
Which made me realize that, you're not going to be copying brains in that way, so you're going to have to keep continuity from brain A to brain B.
Yeah.
Where if it has to be gradual, because otherwise, if it's instantaneous, then that's just a copy.
Right. It's an interesting kind of view on... I've like articulated before when I've talked about some of like identity stuff that I'm interested in. The kind of core is still the same as what you're describing. If it's not a continuous stream that you get like kind of lowered into, then what's the point? Because you're not going to get to experience it, right?
Mm-hmm. And so that's like there's kind of two elements to this. I was thinking about this on the train ride over, is that to effectively convert your brain atom by atom into synthetic was like, I don't know, some kind of nanomachines in your brain, synthetic converting it into a cyber brain over the course of like, I don't know, weeks to months, and then physically transplanting that into the new shell. That kind of bypasses that problem, as well as the idea of when your brain is outside of your body having some kind of internal stimulation just so you aren't just a disembodied consciousness with no input or output, because that would probably be terrifying and traumatizing.
Oh, 100%. Like, you would almost need to be, like, sedated during that process, because I don't think anyone is built to process being a brain in a jar for any length of time.
Yeah,
so
which is actually why I kind of imagine that as, like, you have some kind of reassuring voice presence along with you, to kind of, like, assure you that things are still okay, and maybe give you more of a sense of time and space.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I guess there's also an argument to be made that, like, if you're getting converted into, like, a synthetic sort of brain, with the right sort of stimulation from an external source or a coded source or what have you, you could essentially maybe be experiencing a simulation the whole time to, like, tide you over to.
Maybe. Although there's definitely room in that's narratively wise about questioning what is real.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And there's a bit of an icky part when it comes to that kind of thing, or even... hypothetically, if you do the direct brain transfer and it actually is an actual real thing and doesn't have the soma problem, then you have the leftovers where when it comes to like regular TF, A becomes B. It's straightforward, and like you don't get to view your own dead body effectively.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because like what happens to the meat puppet after?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Like I don't think anybody wants to see their old previous body dead.
Probably not. Although I will say, at least, and this is I guess more common with like some of the werewolf TFs, but like when you have like the kind of flesh ripping type thing, I mean, I think about Hemlock Grove and how they'd rip out of their like skin and then they would eat the skin afterwards,
That's
which is like
funky. Getting all lizard on that shit.
It very much was, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about it. It's interesting. I like it as like an interesting concept. Not what I would go for, but it's interesting.
It can go places, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm kind of iffy on that.
Yeah, but I guess to your point, like, I think a lot of TF doesn't necessarily have to grapple with that problem that you're identifying. That is obviously going to be core to what you have to grapple with when you're doing synthetics.
Yeah, of course, in this setting that's partially based off a roleplay to T-Engineer, that leftover body is effectively also converted into, like, some latex drone thing that also happens to work at the facility, but isn't actually you, it's just leftovers.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
But I feel like you would still maybe have a sense of unease around this particular drone.
Yeah, a little uncanniness of
like you got your shiny new body, but like this old body is kind of freaking me out in a weird familial way. It doesn't talk. It doesn't really look like anything, but
Yeah. Yeah. The amount of time it's going to take for you to just disassociate yourself from that is going to be fucking rough.
Yeah.
But I also think, like, okay, so it's funny because there's a lot of talk of, like, transference and stuff, and that, I mean, it's a change, but like you said, like, transformation is, like, from A to B, and I even think, like, I mean, with transference, there's, like, the problem, but with change, I think you could stretch it because, you know, we have to replace every living cell in our body to keep going, and then you have, like, the ship of Theseus thing, so... You know, you could still keep yourself if you became a machine of some kind.
Yeah, and that's something I was trying to deal with the whole souls and digital thing as well later. Partially why I had also indefinite hiatus the first chapter is because the idea started to evolve faster than I can actually reasonably portray it. Because since, I don't know, like you mentioned, the whole ship of Theseus thing, since we aren't the same person we were before, the idea of self kind of doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So since you're always really changing, all you have is that continuity. So when the idea came around of thinking of new ways to maybe synthesize yourself and having these machines that may or may not absorb you and then kind of reform based on you into a new entity entirely, that kind of maintains that continuity between past and present self. Well, the self itself is different.
Yeah.
Which is a weird sentence to say.
No, but I kind of get what you mean. In a weird sense, it's the thing I kind of compare it to a little bit, and it's not quite the same, but, like, it's a very, like, perverted version of, like, aging in the sense of, like, technically as we age, our bodies are always changing. We're learning with
every
any
7
inputs.
years or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we don't have the same cells anymore. But we're still able to keep a continuity of self. This is just that, like, at a massive macro scale in terms of, like, the time frame and the things that are changing.
Yeah. Kind of gets off topic when it comes to the idea of the synths themselves. But, like, in the original version, it was a simple nano goo bath that would interpret the user's mental patterns or some shit into controlling the mech in, like, a one-to-one experience. And that a familiarity or an over-familiarity with the goo will eventually absorb the user.
Right.
But there was way too much that could be done with this, and that kind of caused the idea to spiral out of my own control.
Because the possibilities were endless. It felt like they were escaping from you almost.
Yeah, so it's kind of hit the same problem as before about having to redraw complex machines over and over again. But not only that, is having the conceptual ideas get really heady.
Yeah.
I think I think what's good with any of this is to give a small slice of like a thought experiment or a problem, and just rolling with that a bit. And maybe here and there, just poking through, just, you know, some other question that maybe you didn't think of, but just like a keep focus, because like I think the other thing was also like merging personalities, or like
Zil
like
has left the chat.
Well, or like merging personalities, but more like let me see, if I'm correct, it's something like the machine kind of grows into its own self, like it grows a self, and then this like alongside you, and then those things come together.
Yeah, so that's where the versatility and variability kind of came in and outpaced itself. Where I was getting really into like the details again of how this thing might work, and so I cut out the thin suit that would the wearer would use and like in the goo, and instead made some kind of super special suit that would kind of have a control yoke in a tube that would convert the user's thoughts and experiences and into the machine itself, and the wearer would kind of slot in as like the brainstem, kind of Attack on Titan-esque. And eventually this kind of nano goo having the core would have its own blank slate, and the more the user used it, the more it kind of imprint on them, and the closer the user experience would be to, like one-to-one.
Right.
The connection would be smoother, they'd be more intuitive. But as the core got more familiar with you, maybe it starts to amplify you. So maybe you start hearing your own thoughts spoken back to you.
Right.
Or maybe certain emotions or feelings are much more amplified because they're reflected on it to you. Or goals, ambitions, things are clearer when you're wearing it. And eventually maybe you don't want to be away from yourself effectively.
Yeah.
And that's the point when maybe the merging happens and a new entity is born.
It's a very interesting kind of like twist on almost going through the looking glass. It
Mm-hmm.
kind of feels like, which is cool. Like, yeah, even if I'm not as big on like some of the merging stuff, like I think from a conceptual perspective, it's interesting to think about, you know, the interplay between the biological and the mechanical, and how, because the two systems are trying to ape each other but are inherently different, that can lead to almost unexpected like end points.
Yeah.
I think you're just kind of missing, like, because you said like, oh, Zola's left the chat, but really it's not much different.
I was joking.
But like I was just gonna say, it's not really any different from when people say they're turning into an animal. It's like, oh, the instincts are taking over or something.
Yeah.
Or if they don't take over, but they end up, you know, like mixing with your personality. So you know, you're not completely erased. You're just like this plus this, or like this but overcome by this mostly, and shit like that.
Oh yeah. And there's no real ego death in this scenario.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course.
Where in this hypothetical future thing, this yoke core would have to be like purged every so often and kind of reset back to zero from the pilot's own imprinting on it. But that kind of leads over to other thought experiments of, well, what if this suit is being worn by more than one person? Would there be thoughts or imprints of the other pilot coming on to the first pilot?
Right.
What if it's gone on too long, and what if the first pilot has completely imprinted onto it and then someone else wears it? Or what if the suit itself has basically gained its own sentient personality of itself? Yeah. How would it view the pilot itself? Would it be friendly to this new component that helps pilot it? Or
hostile. Yeah.
What if you would then romance this personality and decide that you are better as one unit, and the eventual new person entity thing that would result from all this?
Yeah, I'm getting a bit of the symbiote vibes from Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
The Trills, were they? No, wait, no, that wasn't it.
No,
I know what you're talking about. They got weird little head speckles.
No, the Trolls were like their own thing, but that wasn't the symbiote. I think the symbiote was just symbiote. But anyway, like, okay, so I find it interesting that you have all these thoughts. What got you into this? What got you into the whole synthetic and digital thing in the first place? Because, I mean, a lot of people in this fandom are all about like the animals, the creatures, and stuff like that. But the machine and everything like that, you know, that's really something for you that that not a lot of people have.
It was the Trolls.
It was Trolls?
Yeah, it was the Trolls. Sorry.
I think most of it was just kind of the meditative process of drawing it, I think, where, again, trying to solve those visual problems of design and aesthetic and general anatomy as well.
Okay.
As well as the idea of synthetic creatures not having to kind of follow the same rules as even mythical and
Yes.
typical creatures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because they're not. All right. So wow. And
Yeah,
so
they don't
like,
have to be anything.
yeah. So does that mean that you were just experimenting one day? You're like, this looks cool. Let me make some, and then it just grew with how you were just putting that stuff together.
Yeah, it allows for a customization of form that doesn't have to really follow any preconceived rules.
Yeah. So because like okay, the other thing I was wondering was like when you say synth, what does that mean? What do people have to visualize? Because if you say it could be anything, do you really mean like anything or what? Or what do you prefer?
Synth can, like, as far as being a short for synthetic, can kind of just be anything, whether it's like, I wouldn't put it anything past like a cyborg.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if most of your body is like there's no real organic components in there, be it grown or transferred, or even if your body is like smart goo stuff, I would still consider that like synthetic.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. So a synthetic just really means like fabricated,
Inorganic.
Inorganic, not born through fucking kind of thing.
I mean,
Yeah.
not to say there's not going to be. Like,
Well,
if I were going to have my newly transformed mech suit toys turned brand new entity whose body also happened to transform into a new form to kind of match this coalition of sentiences, I would want them to fuck, maybe.
Yeah.
oh well, that's fine with me.
It's like me with the symbiote from like Venom.
well, yeah.
It's a similar.
But that's a lie.
You gotta
I
fuck the
support
goo.
this. Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
You gotta
fine.
fuck the goo.
What so all
There
right.
will be mutual fucking.
In order to get the highest security clearance for your memory files, you need to establish that kind of trust. And that is the procedure, and it needs to be long, and it needs to be vulnerable, and it needs to be romantic, and it needs to be something that they want to do.
What a shame that to unlock your full power, you need to have some gentle fucking. Truly, just the most unfortunate coincidence.
I mean, there was an
Yeah,
idea I
sorry.
was playing around with Comic TF, where I was trying to think of a super simple story to kind of play this out, because with something so complex, it gets overwhelming personally.
Yeah, right.
So I was trying to think of a short, contained story that might work for this. So I was like, okay, what if there's like these are called toys, techno-organic interface suits.
Mm-hmm.
Their origin doesn't really matter. It may as well be aliens. Who cares? So the idea was like, well, what if it's like racing? It's like racehorses, but like pilot the horse mech thing.
Right.
Yeah.
What if the pilot is like really trying to push themselves, be the best, but all the safety stuff of gotta purge the core things, but they can move so much faster if they don't. And then their own competitiveness is imprinted on in the robot, and they basically spur themselves on to the point of winning, but also fusing.
Okay.
So maybe they break through those barriers. They're way out in front. Their body is like more from like quadrupedal horse stance to maybe like bipedal stuff, taking those corners real good. The race is over. They fucking leave the racetrack. They're racing off into the middle of the fucking woods or something. And then it's like, oh yeah, I totally won this. As they have their weird new permanent absorbed weird anthro horse synthetic suit body robot thing.
Works for me.
So something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
I
fun.
think that fucks. Your Honor, that fucks. So.
Apparently, the beasts also fuck because
the beasts are always fucking.
so
obviously.
you are a fellow monster fucker from what I could tell. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, like shit, man.
What do you call a couch full of monster fuckers? There should be a noun for that.
TFTuesday.
A TFTuesday of monster fuckers. I support this. Sorry, I interrupted. Continue.
A pod of monster fuckers.
A pod of monster fuckers.
And that gets into more Orca territory.
I know,
Yeah.
but it's podcast, so I just went with that.
A cast of monster fuckers.
A tube of monster fuckers.
That sounds like it comes in.
A raisin of monster fuckers.
I don't know what that means.
It's just shriveling.
I know what that is,
God.
but I am plenty hydrated, thank you.
Sorry, you were saying something, Libra.
So, So, but also I've seen like love between like humans and beasts and stuff like that. So, I mean, you got, yeah, furry doesn't really hit that mark. It's a very specific thing that you do. So, I don't know, what started your fascination with that?
It kind of hits a lot of the similar notes as stuff I was trying to explore in dancers, where it's overcoming the limits of what a non-human creature can do. And to be clear, this isn't talking about zoophile stuff. I am trying to skirt.
We condemn all the zoos.
Yeah, I'm trying to skirt that line as far as I can by making it only incredibly mythical creatures, usually only transformed creatures, and usually only like intelligence.
They are aware of themselves and other people.
Yeah.
I get that completely. Yeah, like Zil said, we don't do the zoophile thing. That's also why I said monster fuckers. Also, like the term beast is a general thing. So,
oh, absolutely.
So for anybody listening, like, oh yes, a horse is also a beast. Yes, it is. Shut up.
Yeah, fuck off.
Yeah, but that centaur though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a beast. That's different.
Damn it, I forgot. It was like some kind of like meme or joke or something like, yeah, you have a problem with bestiality, and then you like a centaur, and then you're like, how do I reconcile with this? Indeed, how do you?
You reconcile by saying, hey, do you want to get a room, Mr. Centaur?
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't worry.
Consent is sexy, y'all. Consent is sexy.
Consent is sexy.
Consentar.
Consentar, exactly.
I'll always get consent from your consentar.
Exactly.
Did anything spark it with the monsters? I know for me it was kind of like a gradual thing when I was finding like the in-betweens very attractive, and I don't know, for me it was like it came from this like appreciation of like power, and then also from my perspective, it's funny because even though I fancy myself turning into a monster more these days, I still really love the idea of just being me with something that can do things that I never ever could.
Yeah, and that's certainly like I was going to think about that on the way over when it comes to, say, like seducing the dragon.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you succeed, and now you and the dragon are in a committed relationship. Maybe the dragon has its own doubts about like, I'm like 1,000 years old. This creature is like 30. Is this a child? Am I using and exploiting this young creature for my own ends? This feels wrong.
It's funny you mentioned that because there's a series that I was just reading not too long ago that had the elves that would view the short-lived species like that, called Dunmeshi.
Oh,
and
yes.
that is a very interesting dynamic because it really does raise some interesting questions as to how those people view, like you said in the scenario, like the young 30-year-old, because to them it's like, that's a fucking child, but it's like, well...
Yeah, relative to
you, yes,
lifespan.
but not in actuality, right?
But then they also bring that problem like to the inverse with like Chilchuck.
Yeah, that's true.
Because Chilchuck looks like a child, and he's middle-aged.
Yeah.
And also his lifespan and everybody else of his race are shorter-lived. They live like 50 years or something.
Yeah.
They're like super short-lived. You get to find out more about that. But yeah, that just raises questions because you'll see that, like, for instance, Senshi is going to start referring to Chilchuck as like my boy lad, like I'm going to teach you, son. And he's like, "What the fuck, man?
I'm older than you.
Like I am as mature as you are. I am a worldly guy. I fucking have this job, Yeah, I just seducing the dragon sounds like an appeal. Also sounds like a okay.
I think you think about romancing the sword.
Romancing the sword.
Romancing the sword.
Yeah.
I forget what it was even from. I've had a point with that. I think what I actually enjoy about the kind of idea of that kind of relationship is them making it work in a way that the physical and emotional differences are so vast. Like, how do you handle your small significant other who is oh so fragile?
Yeah.
Or you as the significant other, how do you keep up with someone who is so wildly beyond you?
Yeah. And then also the fact that as fragile as humans can be, they're never to be underestimated. So I think it's kind
crafty
of
little things.
yeah. I think it's fun, the prospect of showing this monster, this beast, or whatever, that you two are formidable in your own way.
And can get respect with each other mutually that way.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh my God, you are small and weak and puny. I'm like, yeah, and what is this world? It is cruel and harsh, and I'm alive.
That's a good moral.
So what do you got to say?
But also, having that kind of disparity between one and the other could be a good motivation for some kind of mutualization of TF one way or the other.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like if you want to be more like the one you respect, the one you're involved with.
Yeah. And would they miss that about you? Wouldn't that be interesting? It's just like, yeah, I want to be like you. It's like, yeah, but I
like you the way you are.
Yeah.
I like to hold you so.
It's really sweet. And it's just I like the way you do those themes because there's usually a good lot of tenderness in it too.
Yeah, two things I always strive for when it comes to something sexual is sexy funny or sexy tender. Sexy sex is kind of just boring. Everyone does sexy sex.
Yeah.
And sex can be sexy, but sex is often funny.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah. If you can't laugh while it's happening or whatever, then you don't have a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Is that like stuff that you intend to just... Do you explore that also because you feel like it's missing? Because I feel like there's a lot of tenderness missing with stuff that gets made. At least in Transformation. I remember trying to add love as a tag in Transfer, and I swear somebody kept deleting it. Or it was going away. I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised, honestly.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
No, I think that kind of love as a passion is something that easily fuels into transformation.
Yes, I agree with that. And I think that also one of the things I really enjoy is just the acceptance of oneself no matter what. I think a lot of people overlook that because of what you're seeing, which is ironic because that's what it's supposed to teach against, especially if you're doing it.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite beasts so far? I mean, I know you said you fell in love with Molly, who is the hippogriff and stuff like that, and I know that birds are one of your really big things.
Oh yeah.
Anything else?
Oh god, there was this one piece that I did years ago for Elidub, where it was a couple merging and becoming a griffin, where she was becoming the front half, he was becoming the bottom half, and there was like a magic circle or whatever under them, and I just really liked the idea of like much the same stuff before of two loving beings becoming the same being,
Right.
out of love and fusion and becoming an entity that's happy with themselves. In the same way that they would have for each other.
It comes across as very intimate for you. Yeah.
It's an incredible intimacy to become with the other person.
Right.
And so I've got it on my desktop and I keep meaning to recreate the kind of idea of couples merging. And I feel like you've done, k-libra, some similar couples merging. I think maybe it's a snake thing. I know Griff definitely has.
Yeah, he's done a bunch. He would do people turning into maybe individual things, but then becoming one different thing altogether. Yeah, a lot of visual strangeness, but you can see where they're going is together.
Yeah, it's not something I've explored very much, but definitely a topic I enjoy.
Yeah. Okay, so then merging aside, do you have any favorite monster-human dynamics?
I like when humans are helping the other character, the non-human characters, kind of adapt to human things.
Yeah.
And this kind of goes back to Molly as well, when it's trying to think of how, let's say, Ginny might help Molly around the house, or like being a larger creature in a smaller space, or like accommodations for chairs and such.
Yeah.
But I don't think this answers the question.
Okay. Yeah. So so you like the disparity with like size and capability and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's my love for TF is largely the post-TF of adapting and familiarizing oneself in a different way.
Yeah.
Okay. So the midpoint is really because I remember you saying you also want process.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just part of, I guess, being able to project yourself, getting into that state, into the after state.
Yeah, like the actual person itself is the most fun to draw, but the post-TF exploration is the most satisfying as one becomes familiar with their new body. And that's something that feels partly out of necessity omitted from most sequential artworks.
Oh,
Because it takes so long to get around to.
yeah, you would know. Yeah, it's a lot of fucking work, and then it also takes even more thought. You can't just slap it on.
No, it's not something that can just be put on at the end.
So-
you have to have a lot of active thinking go into it.
Yeah, so when people say they want more of it, I gotta keep reminding them it takes so much goddamn work and attention, and
Yeah.
there's just other things you want to explore and dabble and
It's
stuff
definitely
on.
something that is handled or possible much easier for writers than it is for artists, I would say.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but also, again, if people look around at enough different media and stories, you'll find your post-transformation stuff in a bunch of different themes. Just because it didn't come out of this niche fandom doesn't mean that there's like too little of it. There's a lot.
But will it be a sequence?
Your mom is a sequence.
Oh, God.
God damn. How many of those have you gotten?
Sequences? Or
No,
your mom
no.
jokes?
Oh.
No. how many of those, like, will it be a sequence comments did you ever get?
Oh, if I put out more work, probably more than 0.
Fuck those people. Fuck you all. Publicly, loudly, and unabashedly. Fuck you for asking.
Nah, no one's asked that recently.
Yeah, don't ask again.
That's good. That's good.
You know what gets me is when somebody, I forget which artist it was, but it was a 3-step sequence, and it's like 1 of 3, 2 of 3, 3 of 3, and the last one is just like, is there going to be a continuation of this?
It's like the number is 3 out of 3. What do you think?
Oh no, wait, no, it was 1 of 2 and 2 of 2, and then they asked for a continuation. It's like, shut the fuck up.
Well, if it's like from the commissioner, that can be, ooh, more please.
They can say that in the back. Why are
I was gonna say that could be lucrative,
we're
but
talking-
then talk about it in the DMs.
I mean, if we're
right?
talking about people who just like making offhand comments about, ooh, hot more, please, more.
I'm always talking about those people.
Yeah.
I don't know. I part of it is flattering. Sometimes maybe it'll, I don't know, not inspire, but like, I don't know. Sometimes I think of like, well, what if there was a third stage, even if I don't actually end up doing it?
Mhm.
I mean, somebody asked me
It can
about
be an interesting thought experiment.
it is, and it gets me thinking. But then I realized, man, in order to follow this up, what the fuck, dude? That's gonna be so much work. I already got that with the snake sequence. Anyway, we should progress this sequence.
It largely depends on like if it was a commission sequence versus a personal thing,
Yeah.
or if it was from someone else entirely. Because if the person's fitting the bill for it anyway, then like, sure.
I'm definitely not talking about that instance. Shit, I've been asked to make an alternate version of a commission piece by just some fuckwit.
You can just ignore those.
An
He left a
ultimate
comment,
version?
an alternate version.
Oh, an alternate. I was like,
Yeah.
Ultimate bio.
Yeah. Oh my god.
So a while ago, there was this. I did this drawing of 2 synth deer anthros, basically just like hugging each other, and loved the idea of them being one entity, just kind of like one consciousness, 2 bodies kind of deal.
Mhm.
So they can like coordinate themselves as if they're one person.
Right.
And I think I kind of forget the sequential. Like, I didn't actually talk to them about it, but they ended up writing the story around the idea about 2 people who basically get like mind transferred into these synthetic deer bodies, released in the same room, and effectively over the course of I don't know, whatever, end up syncing with each other and becoming one entity. And partially it's done through thoughts or contact or kissing. Like the act of wet tongue touching is like super sync. But I have never been so aroused by text formatting before, where they did this thing. The store is called Sync, if you're interested, like
Okay.
SYNCH.
Okay.
There's this thing where the main character's text is aligned left, the other character's text is aligned right.
Okay.
And they were portraying whose thoughts were being thought in whose head. So they were thinking your thought in my head. So they were having the question, the answer, the question, the answer, and then having them maybe sync together in the middle of the page, formatted center, when they're starting to think along the same thoughts.
Yeah.
And just the way they were doing it felt like the hottest thing.
You really like the like the unity, like the oneness that could be achieved between people. I like that. That's real sweet. There's like a bunch of different ways to do that, and I mean that's a thing about sex, for instance, that I really look for. So that's why something like merging has its appeal for me. And like even like the personality thing, I mean, not quite, but maybe. I'm definitely not against it. It's also just it's something that's kind of overlooked, and like, because sex can be crude and everything, and that's because it's a sloppy thing, but that's supposed to be the fun of it. Like once you accept the imperfection of like us and the act and all that stuff, you have potential for like a great time. And I still think of it as like that's the most vulnerable anybody could be with anybody else.
And other elements of like relinquishing control, stuff like that, to each other.
Yeah. And I like that, and that's one of the reasons I can be down with all this stuff.
All right, cool. So we got some interesting audience questions, and of course, thank you everyone who has continually shared interesting questions with us. The first question is from Leo F. Wine, and they ask, what extinct animal would you TF into, and would you choose a feral form if there was a 100% chance to bring the species back with your help? Caveat, you'd need to remain in the feral form until the resulting offspring reaches maturity, after which you would be able to return to your human life.
I don't know if I want that, especially since the extinct animal may not be able to exist well in the ecosystem or the climate. I don't know. It doesn't, like, I don't know. Why would I...
Okay, well, maybe I can shoot an answer, because I do have one I thought of. So, the thylacine didn't go extinct until the 1930s, which isn't that long ago. And they had a pretty limited range in terms of like where they naturally were found in Tasmania. And I think they're cool fucking creatures. There's an old sequence that Aranya did, actually, of someone turning into a kind of anthrothylacine that I was always really drawn to. I even did an adaptation of the sequence. So that would probably be my pick, and I would be down to help repopulate the thylacines and, do my duty as a very hard-pressed upon person.
As a bird lover myself, I think I'd go for the passenger pigeon if I was going to be feral. Because, again, it's something else, much similar to thylacines, as it was largely hunted down, and also has the benefit of being non-committal as far as being in that form for too long, because bird chicks are gonna fledge relatively quickly as far as that goes.
Yeah, that's true.
So like I'd have to deal with this if I don't like it, so maybe a month or two.
That's pretty good, actually. Yeah, I didn't even think about like how long the maturity process is for a thylacine. I imagine it's probably at least a year or two, but it's fine. So hard to be TF for a year or two, Did you have any mind changes?
I cannot think of anything. There's no like, oh, this extinct species, I'm such a fan of it, I miss it, I don't have one.
Any kind of dinosaur?
Not even a dinosaur. I mean, if I were to look a little bit, I'd find one, but I don't have time for that shit right now.
No dodo birds?
Dodos? Yeah.
They're cute.
They are cute.
They're cute.
Yeah.
You should do a dodo bird.
That'd be really cool to like push out of a face.
Yeah, help the planet be a dodo bird for a while.
Or if anything else, I'm sure there's like a few species of frog that have gone extinct.
There are plenty of frogs that have gone extinct. I think about like, oh man, wait, I think there's this like one surviving turtle.
Talking about Lonely, whatever his name was?
Yeah.
Lonely Steve?
Yeah, something like that.
I look this up.
Maybe that, I guess. I don't know. Turtles and tortoises
did he pass
are
away?
wonderful.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, but I guess so. I'm not super enthusiastic about it.
Lonesome George, and yes, he did pass away.
Yeah, so that was the last of his species. Oh,
Pour one out
like
for Lonesome George.
Like a Galapagos tortoise, I think.
Wait, are all the Galapagos tortoises gone? No.
It might be a subspecies
No,
of it.
Lonesome George was a male Pinta Island tortoise and last known individual of the subspecies. Last year's, okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I'll find myself like a lizard, snake, thingy, whatever.
Yeah.
Birds are cool. I like birds a lot too.
No, I know you do, hence why I suggested it. But, you know.
So, yeah, I don't know. You don't get a satisfying answer from me.
No, that's fine. It's the question is if you want to. So if it's not, then that's it.
Nah.
Um,
I don't want to doom my offspring. It's just like, you brought us back for this? I'm sorry.
Father, why?
Yeah, why have you given me life?
Why? Why was I programmed to feel pain?
The next question we have is from Max Velocity, and he asks, there are lots of different predictions for the future of humanity, from the pessimistic with things like climate change hell to the optimistic with things like space travel. Which of these scenarios do you think is likely, and what would you TF into to adapt to that situation?
You know what the funny thing is?
What?
If you stay a human being, your odds of survival are pretty good. because
So you're saying either way you'll just stay human because you can hedge your bets?
Yeah, because like, what the fuck, man? All the environments that we live next to volcanoes and in like all these fucking crazy stupid places, and we're just like, yeah, we somehow have kids and shit too. And we live and we find food, and I'm like, why the fuck would I be anything else if that's how I feel? Like, oh, the wildlife around you is dying. Don't you notice that the humans are the last thing to die in this forsaken land? The livestock won't go anymore, but the humans just keep fucking going until there's literally nothing left.
The cockroaches have entered the chat.
The cockroaches even are like, they're around because of us.
Oh, no, of course. I'm just saying, from a survivability, they'll probably out-survive us.
Well, that depends on the thing. I mean,
The thing.
The situation or the scenario.
like they can't take diameseous Earth, but we can like huff a little bit in, cough, and survive.
Well, it's probably not good for you long term.
No,
Probably
but
not.
like I mean, like a huff versus them walking through it and they're dead.
Well, we have the same problems as them, where it basically gungs up our whole respiratory system and gets stuck in little crevices. And
Well, that's because their respiratory system is on the outside of them.
yeah, but we can't get rid of what's inside,
Yeah, well,
like
asbestos.
asbestos.
Again,
Like asbestos.
Again, hedging our bets. I don't really know what I'd turn into. The things I like would probably be too sensitive to the climate, and the things that could survive, I'm kind of like, well, I'm already here. Also, the in terms of which future is likely, both. I believe that no,
Get a
seriously.
species that can do both.
No.
I think he's talking about like ruin the planet and leave into space.
Oh, yeah.
Like maybe leave into space. I think the more likely scenario is that there'll be a bunch of huge disasters. Things will they'll move around, relocate, restructure, and then we'll continue from there. Solve a few problems, probably expand into space or something like that. But we're probably going to have to be motivated by a bunch of fucking catastrophe. And that's probably how it's going to go. And I don't like it, and there's no need for it, but here we are.
Hypotheticals are fun when you think about the end of the world.
Yes.
Welcome to catastrophized anxiety.
Yay!
Yay! Every day.
Oh, God.
So
I live for today. We can talk about synth porn some more. It's all good.
no, I was gonna I kind of conceptualize the idea of like, what if people do go so far into space that like people like animals? What if people are so far out that people want to maybe not be whole animal, but like part animal?
Right.
So like, what's a little gene editing between friends
Yeah, exactly.
in space? It's fun.
Yeah.
Plus, gotta adapt your UV body, low gravity shit anyway.
Yeah,
May as well
exactly.
get yourself some fun appendages, whatever.
Yeah.
Having this little kitty tail to waggle around in space to help reorient yourself in zero gravity.
More regeneration.
Also that.
I support this. I'll say that given what my day job is, I'm gonna say I have to be more optimistic because I'm trying to stop the former. But I guess like if I did have to pick something to TF into, like that would adapt to that. I guess the whole space travel thing. I mean, guys, I'm gonna say Lombax. I'm fucking basic. Like, you just gave me an opportunity to say Lombax again. Of course, I'm gonna be like, I'll turn into a Lombax. So like,
Are they extinct or aren't they? I didn't play past 3.
So they're not. Basically, most of the species actually went to a different dimension to like hide out from like the war that was going on at the time. Ratchet's the only one in his dimension, but they're all over the place. So there's plenty of them.
I gotta get around to playing those ones, but some are just not on PC.
Yeah, Rift Apart is though.
It is, but that's 3 games further than where I'm at.
That is
that
true. Yeah.
I played that one and I just enjoyed it.
Yeah, you can enjoy it outside of the
I guess
other stuff.
I've got the ISO files for the PS3 games, but
Yeah.
the emulation is so imperfect. But I'm so close, I can't get past this.
Well, then let me just say this: my PS3 is still in working order. So if
is
you
it
ever
PS4?
want, no, it's PS3. It's PS3.
Yeah, because I have 2.5 dead PS3s.
Well, I have a living one, so if you ever want to play them, I'm happy to
Is it the
supply.
top loader kind?
No, it's the one with the disc drive.
Okay, I'm so wary of those.
Mine has lasted like 14 years at this point, and it's still going just fine. So I'm pretty happy with it.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then last question here we have is from Fire, which I'm about to sow info dump on this one. So the question is, in D&D, what is your favorite class? And it can be either core or homebrew if you have one. I will go first. I've already gushed about this in the Patreon Discord, which you can join if you sign up for our Patreon. But it's Cleric. It is the objective correct answer. Cleric is the best class. I will fight anyone who says otherwise. There's a variety of reasons, one of which is that you can have a really good AC, which is my favorite stat. AC is the best stat. Not being able to be hit by anything except by God is pretty fucking cool, and you get to feel really fucking powerful. Also, clerics are a full caster, which means you can have all the benefits of getting to cast fun spells. I was born a support main, unfortunately, but that does mean that as a cleric, you can be the best fucking support there ever was and also never go down, and also bring people back from the dead, which is kind of fun. Like, that's a pretty cool ability to have. So that's the objectively correct answer. Also, you can still wield with your weapon if you so wish. Not the most optimal thing, but you can. So basically, Cleric's the best one. You get to have all of the spells on your spell list, and you just have to pick which ones prepare on any given day. So you never feel restricted in terms of like the potential options you could have. And if you're someone like me who is very indecisive, if you're going down another magic route that isn't wizard, you have to like kind of pick spells and stick with them, and I don't like doing that because then I have to like, agonize over my decision and weigh the benefits and the drawbacks. So fuck that, just take all the spells and you end up with cleric. So yeah,
Sometimes dead is better.
yeah.
I don't know, I just think that whenever you said bring people back from the dead, it's like, no, round turn sour.
Well, I have enjoyed many a necromancer character, so I'm like, nah, that's fine.
I've been getting into, I don't have as strong an opinion as that for D&D stuff, but I've been playing a Tengu Wellspring Sorcerer in the first Pathfinder campaign I've been playing in like a decade.
Yeah.
With the idea of her power swells up and bad stuff can happen, and she's trying to find a way to control it. That is her current arc.
I love it. Sorcerers are great. To be clear, like, in my opinion, sorcerers, particularly actually in Pathfinder, sorcerers are really good. I really like how they've designed them, and the action economy works pretty well for them.
I call her Glitterfingers.
Why Glitterfingers?
Because it's a name I've been trying to make into a goddamn character for about that time frame. And I've been naming it for like any kind of spellcaster in like Dark Souls and Elden Ring, but this has some idea that maybe she has little embers that glitter from her fingers.
Oh, I like that. That's a nice little touch.
Works for me.
How about you, Aaron?
You went from strongest to less strong to I don't fucking really play Dungeons and Dragons.
That's true.
Go play that nerd shit.
Yeah, my nerd shit is echidna bullshit. And the funny thing is that I guess I would pick monk because when I looked at the list,
Monk
yeah,
is
Turn to monkey.
good.
I just like the idea of it's just like oh, what are you gonna do? Bah! Like, oh god,
I
no.
cast fist.
It's true. No, literally, monks are so fucking good. Sorry, not to like hijack your answer, but I just want to underline why your answer is also a very good answer. If you have someone in your party who has the spell haste and you cast it on your monk, it is one of the most incredibly rewarding experiences you can ever have as a player, because you go up to someone and you punch them like 8 fucking times and they can't fucking stop you, and you can spend some key points and get more punches and stun them and then get crits and everything. Monk would be a perfect fit for you. I think you'd really enjoy it.
Yeah, get into that Marvel vs. Capcom 2 mindset. You want to learn how to do a fucking infinite?
Yeah, literally.
Hey kid.
Oh man, but yeah, monks are great. So
yeah, it's like the role playing perspective. I like the idea of not having to rely on something. Even in I thought it was really fun in Soul Calibur 2 for the PlayStation when Heihachi.
That was weird.
Yeah, it was, but it was fun. Okay, so in that Soul Calibur. In that Soul Calibur, one of the things you could do is that you could unlock different weapons for each character.
Yeah.
They all had effects. And so Heihachi obviously doesn't use a weapon, so he had bracers, and everybody had an ultimate weapon. His ultimate weapon was nothing.
Oh.
And it was just called Tekken, and it's just like one only needs their own fists or something like that. They don't need to rely on a weapon. I'm like, yeah, that's fucking badass.
That goes hard, Your Honor.
Yeah, so it's just like you got the huge armored Nightmare Knight who kills armies, and you have his like good counterpart and all these people with these wild weapons. He's just like, I will take my hands and show you what the fuck this shit is.
I have electric wind god fists.
Yeah.
Watch my wave dashes. Or my Korean back dashes. Nightmare's just sweating. What the fuck?
Oh my god.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Well, that was all the questions that we had. I don't know, Proxer, if you had any questions for us.
Oh, hell. On the spot here.
Sorry.
Nothing comes to mind in my deer in the headlights state.
That's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, you got turned into a deer when you came over here.
It's true.
Blinded by the light.
Yeah. But it has been really great to have you here. And it's really nice to get the rare opportunities to record on this cozy couch.
On
with
location.
Yes.
Yeah, live on set.
Yeah. And thanks a lot for coming on. And I guess kind of like breaking your silence. I don't know if other people have actually heard you before.
I've talked a little bit on stream. I think I joined a friend's stream a couple months ago just for funsies.
Oh, okay.
But I don't do that much like audio presence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is cool. And for anybody else who's been following Proxer's work for a long time now, I hope you get to enjoy like all the thoughts that we've also been privileged to just to get, because I never thought I'd have this opportunity either,
Okay.
Yeah.
It's been fantastic to meet you. I didn't get a chance to plug at the start because I kind of forgot. You can find me on Furfinity and Patreon under Proxer, just Proxer, or Twitter. I'm not super active, but you can find me there as Proxer Draws. Somewhat sporadic in my releases, but hopefully getting better as inspiration strikes and financial needs accrue.
If you support her, then you can assure a bit more peace of mind to be able to make the stuff that you want to see.
Yeah.
Including, maybe finishing stories and shit like that she obviously wants to finish.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, the spirit is willing and
But the body is spongy and bruised.
the brain. Oh, the brain.
Oh, the brain.
It is so smooth.
Sorry, just the smooth brain as like an insult or a statement is just still such a funny like term to me. It just amuses me to no end.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that as an interesting portion of like TF stuff that I've always wanted to do but never actually done, of just integrate brain smoothing as part of the process.
Oh, that's great.
Like, you know how people do cutaways for like internal shots and whatever.
Yeah,
It's like, how about just a cutaway of their brain smooth?
Smooth brain. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much again for coming on, and thank you so much everyone for listening. I hope that y'all had as good a time listening to this as we did recording it. And, of course, we'll see you next week. But in the meantime, I hope that you get some good rest, deal with all the wonderful changing temperatures around this time of year.
Oh, yeah.
Keep an open mind and stay TFy, and we'll see you back here again next week.
Navigate the darkness with your guts.
Rip and tear your guts.
Ruff, 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 ruff.
I'm a dog.
Ruff, 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 ruff.